Okay, let's start the lecture 4. Okay, let's continue about human resource development. Let's take a good example of the Korea Maritime University. It is located at the entrance of the Busan North Port. You know, small but beautiful KMU Island, which it is an ideal location for the Maritime Training Institute. And the Maritime cluster is within a short distance from the university. This photo shows the KMOU campus. Alright, in the meantime, KMU and KMOU is the same university. They have 2 training ships which are directly berthed on the school pier. Comprehensive engine workshop for marine engineering cadets. Integrated simulation center facilities for deck and engine cadet. And student dormitories are the key facilities. Those are the series of training ships which are being used for the training of the KMOU cadets from 1960 until now. The first training ship was steamship Bando. Bando means the peninsula, which was operated from 1960 to 1972. She was a cargo ship but was converted into a training ship. Second training ship was Hanbada 1, the first. She was built in Japan for special purpose of cadet training, which is operated for 30 years under KMOU. However, she served another 15 years more under different training institute. Third training ship was Hannara First. She was built in Korean shipyard for special purpose of cadet training, which operated for 26 years under KMOU, and she is now in Vietnam for training of Vietnamese cadets. Hanbada Second and Hannara Second are now serving for the training of KMOU cadets. Hanbada 2 was built in 2005. Her tonnage is 6,686 gross tonnage, while Hannara 2 was built in 2019. Her tonnage is 9,196 gross ton, which is bigger than Hanbada 2. The KMOU was founded in November 45, just after the end of World War II, before the establishment of the Korean government. However, the KMOU could not be developed because of the Korean War, which was broken out in 1950. All the school buildings and facilities were demolished during the war. Nothing was left in the Korean peninsula. However, we were lucky to secure some financial aid from the United Nations Korean Construction Agency, UNCRA in short word, to build the Merchant Marine Academy in Busan. For your information, the UNCRA was an economic reconstruction program created by the United Nations and existed for 27 years until 1976. Finally, KMOU has settled down on this new campus in 1955, and they developed and advanced dramatically for the next 20 years of time. They opened a postgraduate course in 1960. They have had the first training ship, SS Pando, in 1960 as well. They doubled the number of intake in 1968 and doubled again in 1977. Automatically, they were faced with a space shortage on the campus. They required a wider new campus space to accommodate higher number of students. They built a new campus on a small island and moved to this new campus in 1974. You can imagine the construction story of a new campus on this small island through the 3 photos which was taken in 1973 and 1974 and 2000 on this slide. KMOU has spent their growth period in this new campus from 1974 until now. A new training ship, Hanbada First, size about 3,500 gross ton, was launched in 1975. In 1980, they made a big change in the history of KMOU. They have started to open new courses other than navigation and marine engineering, shipping business, maritime law, courses for mechanical engineering for ship were opened in 1980. Later, many other courses were opened, including naval architecture, electronics and marine communication, maritime trade, ocean engineering, control engineering, logistics and port management, etc., many other courses. March 1991 was a historical moment in KMOU. They allowed female cadets to enter into navigation and marine engineering course. Next year, in 1982, KMOU became university status with 3 different faculties. There are 4 faculties under KMOU. They are the Faculty of Maritime Sciences, Faculty of Ocean Science and Technology, Faculty of Engineering, and Faculty of International Studies. Please look at the various departments under the College of Maritime Sciences. There are 8 departments altogether, 4 courses in navigation group in blue color, another 4 courses in marine engineering group in red color. Maritime transportation, navigation, Coast Guard studies, and global maritime studies are in navigation group. And marine system engineering, marine engineering, offshore plant management, and maritime IT are in marine engineering group. However, they restructured the organization recently. Now please look at the number of students registered. The total registered student number is 9,281, including 2,288 female students. 8,271 students are under in undergraduate course, 777 are in master program, and 231 are in PhD, doctor program. Now, let's move to the next agenda, how maritime manpower contribute to national economy. When we became independent in 1945, I told already, there are only 3 small-sized commercial motor ships in this country. Misfortune on top of misfortune. The Korean War had broken out in 1950, just 5 years after the independence. Automatically, all the facilities and infrastructures were demolished in this country. On top of that, we lost more than 400,000 lives, and more than 1 million people were injured during the war of 3 years. Therefore, overseas aids were badly needed to maintain our daily lives. The Korean economy was based on overseas aid, such as Marshall Plan of USA. The per capita income was only $67 in 1953 when I was born. Then what was the seed money for Korean economic development? Certainly the ODA, Official Development Assistance, by United States and other donors are the invaluable asset for Korean economy. The amount of grant aid was $4,400 million, and the amount of credit assistance was $400 million from USA during 1945 to 1969. In the meantime, the foreign currency earned by Korean overseas workers had an incredible impact for the development of the Korean economy at the same time. Overseas seafarers earned hundreds and millions of dollars, and miners and nurses in West Germany have earned about $101 million during 1964 to 1975. The amount of foreign currency earned by overseas seafarers during 1999 to 2001 was $310 million per year, which is equivalent to the export of about 700,000 cars, because the net profit was only $440 per car at the time. This slide shows the 10 major foreign currency earning industry of Korea in 2012, which is about 10 years ago. The number 1 industry was the export of petroleum products. The number 2 is the semiconductor. The number 3 is car export. The number 4 is the shipbuilding. And the 5th is the shipping industry. Here, you may question on if Korea produce crude oil. Absolutely no. Korea import crude oil and export product oils. You know, Korea is number 3 import country of crude oil and number 4 for oil export country. Let's try to find out the current state of the maritime industry in Korea. The number of workers, means employees in maritime industry, was 312,000 people in 2016, which is 193,000 people in shipbuilding and about 99,000 people in shipping, port, and logistics industry. The employee inductive effect was over 1.3 million people, which account for 4.7% of the labor force and 9.8% of GNP in Korea. This slide shows turnover of maritime industry of Korea in 2016. Total amount of turnover of maritime industries was $1.8 billion in 2016. However, you can find out the turnover of each sectors in detail from this slide. Korea has 1,576 ships of 75 million deadweight tons, which is 4.7% of the world fleet in 2013. And they are placed fifth in the world. However, they have 1,647 ships. However, they have 1,641 ships of 86 million deadweight tons in 2021, which ranked 7th in the world. Many of Korean people agreed that the graduate from the Korea Maritime University has played a leading role in the development of Korean shipping industry. You may find out an extremely exceptional story on this slide. There are many private shipping companies that have been established in 1960s through 1990s. 31 companies were founded in 1960s and 39 companies were founded in 1970s. Please keep an eye on the numbers in bracket in red color. See the red color? It indicates that the number of companies which was established by mariners who have a seafaring background. 25 shipping companies were founded by ex-seafarers during 1960s to 1990s. How can we explain such a large number of shipping companies that have been established by mariners, even though shipping is very capital-intensive industry? There are no words to describe it except entrepreneurship of marine officers. Shipping-related capitalists were originated from merchant marine officers, operators of shipping agencies, and coastal shipping companies. Generally, they did not have enough capital to acquire a large-sized ship vessel. Therefore, they had to demonstrate entrepreneurship in order to overcome these disadvantages and difficulties. In Korea, due to the entrepreneurship successfully demonstrated by maritime officers and managers of small shipping-related businesses, shipping-related capital accounted for more than 22.5% of the newly established shipping companies, over the period of 1950s to 1970s. It is being continued until the present day. There are more than 50 ship owners who have a seafaring background in 2019. Sinoco Group of Shipping Companies is #1 ship owner. They have about 150 ships of nearly 11 million deadweight tons, including chemical tankers, oil tankers, container ships, and bulk carriers. #2 ship owner is Polaris Shipping Company. They have 29 ships of very large ore carriers and Capesize bulk carriers. Their tonnage is about 7.7 million deadweight. Beside the ship owners, ex-seafarers are working in shipyard as well. About the average of 100 to 120 ex-merchant marine officers are working in Big Three shipyards, including Hyundai Heavy Industry, HHI, Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering, DSME, and Samsung Heavy Industry, SHI. Entrepreneurship is the state of being an entrepreneur, or the activities associated with being an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is a person who sets up businesses and business deals. Then you may have a question. Why did many of the merchant marine officers in Korea become a big ship owners? In my opinion, they have expertise and experience in ship operation and management, cargo management and crew management. And second point, they tend to have a dream about becoming a ship owner. And third, they have a willingness to take risks and overcome difficulties in order to transform the stable seafarer's position into uncertain ship owner's status by purchasing his own ship. A typical example is represented by Mr. Chang Yong-fa, the founder of Evergreen Shipping in Taiwan, and Mr. Cho Jung-hun, founder of the Hanjin Group in Korea. They were ex-seafarers. Another important agenda, we should remember that the shipping served as the national security and defense in emergency. Because shipping, meaning the commercial fleet, is the fourth national security and defense force after the Army, Navy, and Air Force. You know, the commercial fleet plays a pivotal role in military logistics during the war. It was proved through the World War II, Falkland Island War between United Kingdom and Argentina, etc. You already have seen a couple of video clips and photos about the importance of the commercial fleet in the emergency, in the war. Therefore, it is essential to maintain certain number of national fleet instead of FOC, flag of convenience ships in Korea. You can see 3 photos in this slide. The left photo shows the first national president of Korea, Mr. Lee, visiting KMU in 1955 to celebrate the completion of campus buildings in Busan, which was one of the UN reconstruction projects after Korean War. The middle photo shows the second national president of Korea, Mr. Yoon, visited KMU in 1960 for the naming ceremony of the first training ship, SS Pando. The right side of photo shows the third national president of Korea, Mr. Park, visited KMU in 1965 to order to increase the number of students at KMU. Then perhaps you are starting to doubt why those national presidents visited the small academy in an important time of establishment of a new government. We are sure that they understood the importance of shipping and seafarers for the development of the country. You may also have a question: why did the third president, Mr. Park, has ordered to increase the number of students of KMU? He recognized that the foreign currency, such as US dollars, earned by the overseas Korean workers is very, very important source for the acquisition of foreign currencies. Especially the seafarers who worked on foreign flagship during that time contributed significantly to foreign currency earnings. That is why he visited KMU and ordered to increase the number of students as much as possible and as soon as possible. As such, the perception of the shipping by the top leader, the policymakers like a nation's president, is very important. Therefore, you should try to make the president understand the importance of shipping for your country. You already have seen this slide before. When we became independent from Japan in 1945, I told that we have only 3 motor ships remaining. Can you see the ship in the red circle? Yes, she is the second generation of a wartime standard cargo ship called Victoria ship, who served in Korean War. She evacuated 14,000 refugees from North Korea to South Korea. You should know and understand some basic history of the Korean War. The war was broken in June 25, 1950. After several days, only several days, Seoul, the capital city of Korea, fell to North Korea. So the Allied Union forces, including US troops, landed on September 15th at Incheon, and Seoul was reconquered on September 29th. However, unfortunately, a massive number of Chinese troops joined the war at the end of October. Therefore, the Allied troops and many civilians have to leave the northern part of the country to south. You may have the ship's name, steamship Meredith Victory, which is ship of miracles. Her name is steamship Meredith Victory that evacuated 14,000 refugees from North Korea to South Korea at the end of December 1950 during the Korean War. You can see the ships with full of refugees on deck. But still, there are thousands and thousands of people gathered at the port of Hungnam. The Victory ship's capacity to accommodate is only 60 people because she is a cargo ship. But there are 47 crews already on board, so the remaining seat is only 13. But thousands and thousands of people are waiting at the quayside, as you can see on the picture, in the port of Hungnam to evacuate from there to the southern part of their country, Korea. Finally, she, the Meredith Victory, evacuated 14,000 people, which was the Guinness record at the time. She could save 14,000 people successfully. So the US President Truman said that it is wonderful and the best Christmas present ever received. You may understand how commercial ship could contribute for smooth logistics during the wartime through this story, and how commercial ships can contribute for the national security and safety in case of the national emergency. Okay, in conclusion, there are 4 important driving forces for the rapid growth of Korean economy and the shipping. Number 1, we have enough manpower who are well educated and highly qualified in many sectors, including shipping. And the second motivation is we could arrange the smooth invitation on foreign capital inflows for SOC infrastructure to construct iron mill, oil refinery, and heavy industries, including shipyard. 3. The third driving force should be the outward-looking trade regime. It means the state-initiated export policies made the export-driven economy become successful. Another important driving force was the favorable external environment from our point of view. Not your point of view, it is our point of view. In a sense, the Vietnam War has contributed considerably to the development of a Korean economy. Korea has earned about $235 million, including their wages and allowances, which did very important contribution for the nation's economic development. Another innovative opportunity was the Middle East construction boom during 1973 to 1985. Korea actively participated in physical infrastructure boom, construction boom in the Gulf state of Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iran, and Iraq. And they were able to become a major player in the Middle Eastern construction market in 1970s. Eventually, we made a contract of $67 billion. The seafarers who worked on for foreign flagship earned $1.6 billion during 1964 to 1983 for 20 years' time. Again, we have to empathize that well-trained and educated manpower is a crucial national asset. So far, I have introduced and explained the successful story of Korean maritime and shipping development, how they secure shipping tonnage, how they educate and supply qualified maritime manpower in time, how they overcome the couple of shipping crises. Finally, I will show a short video clip which was produced by IMO introducing National Maritime Transport Policy.
The importance of maritime transport for trade and development cannot be overemphasised. With over 80% of global trade by volume and more than 70% by value carried on ships, seaborne trade is an engine for inclusive and sustainable growth. Maritime transport is an essential part of the so-called blue economy. Analysts and commentators agree that this has enormous potential to promote economic growth and social inclusion and improve livelihoods, while at the same time ensuring the sustainability of the oceans and coastal areas. It's been identified as a vital element in enabling many of the UN Sustainable Development Goals to be realised. And yet many countries remain unprepared to take advantage of this potential. They lack the basic infrastructure at the national level to become effective stakeholders in the blue economy and make the most of the opportunities it offers. What they lack and what they need is a coherent and coordinated national maritime transport policy. So what exactly is a national maritime transport policy?
National Maritime Transport Policy is the articulation of more concrete guidelines and principles that will help a government or a nation to achieve its national maritime vision.
It might, for example, cover maritime safety measures, pollution prevention and environmental protection, port management and expansion, state aid, competition rules governing access to national markets, and how the National Maritime Administration operates. All those involved need to participate in drawing up the policy to ensure they understand it and they buy into it.
I would say the first steps would be to identify a leading ministry or agency, and then to prioritize the national goals and the national objectives in national maritime transport policy.
This means a number of different government entities will need to be involved. Ministries for maritime affairs, transport, environment, finance, economic planning, fisheries, and even defence are all likely to be involved. Foreign affairs and even education and labour could also have a seat at the table. And in most countries, the private sector and NGOs would ideally also be part of the conversation. It's a complex process, but where do you start? Once a lead agency has been nominated, the first step is to identify the country's national maritime interests and assess these in light of the existing social, economic and regulatory environment.
Well, the first thing is to investigate, what is the current status of your maritime activity and what are the best practices and gaps that may have in a country's transport sector. So you have to do kind of an underlying examination of, where the country is and where it would like to be in a limited time frame, 5 to 10 years.
Armed with the results of these preliminary exercises, a draft policy can then be drawn up, circulated for comment among the other stakeholders, and eventually finalised. Most countries will then need to draft and enact legislation to give the policy teeth. And then begins a process of implementation, enforcement, monitoring and review.
IMO is the UN agency responsible for international shipping and is fully committed to helping countries develop their national maritime transport policies.
Many of the likely benefits are directly in line with IMO's own goals and objectives and will lead to better implementation of IMO conventions. Through its Integrated Technical Cooperation Programme, IMO organises activities to assist countries prepare their national maritime transport policies and, in conjunction with the World Maritime University, has developed a training package for government officials and other senior personnel.
A well-structured and implemented national maritime transport policy can pave the way for modern and effective maritime governance, for timely application of new technology, for enhanced maritime safety and security, for better maritime education and training, and for improved environmental protection.
Not only are each of these desirable outcomes in their own right, they are also the tools a country needs to become an effective participant in the maritime sector and to harness the full potential of the blue economy.
That is my lecture today. Thanks for listening. And I hope you can get some ideas on how you can develop your shipping in the industry in your country. If you have any questions or if you want to know more details, please email to me. I will try my best to answer your questions. Thank you again.